March Capital Program Committee meeting. Do we have members of the public that are ready to provide comments? Briefly.
Mr. Chair, we have 7 members of the public registered to speak.
Okay.
Our first speaker will be Jesse Figueroa, followed by Chris Greif.
Hey, I'm back, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Jesse Figueroa, U.S. Army veteran and accessibility transportation advocate. As the 2025 through 2029 capital program advances into its second year, I'd like to acknowledge the meaningful progress on ADA station upgrades, electric bus depot conversions, and resiliency projects that strengthen the system for future generations. These investments are central to reliability, climate readiness, and equitable access. I encourage the committee to continue accelerating shovel-ready accessibility projects, maintain transparent reporting on project timelines, and ensure that community engagement remains central as major contracts move forward. Thank you for your continued leadership and stewardship on this critical program.
Our next speaker will be Chris Greif, followed by Jason Anthony.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christopher D. Greif, president of the ADA Transportation Group. As we are going to be talking about today, the 2nd Avenue Subway, my group is fully supporting it because we want the train to go up to the 2nd Avenue. The seniors and people with disabilities and baby strollers and the veterans would like to see this train going up to 125th and even extending it up to Broadway, because it's about time that we can have an option to transfer not just to the Metro North, not just the 2 and 3, but also the A, B, C, D, and the 1. So therefore, we have an option. If, say, one line goes down, we have an option to go to a different run, a different line, or reroute our accessibility, as Edith Prentice has always mentioned. Rerouting accessibility makes it easier for them to travel to options where they have to go. So I am here to support that. And second, I want to wish every woman Happy Women's Day, MTA Happy Appreciation Day, because as we appreciate the fine work that we've been getting done since 2019 until today, we have got things accomplished. It would be nice if our federal government in Washington will understand that you're not just hurting people, you're hurting seniors and people with disability. So we need to remind our federal government, stop hurting us. Let's see the funding to continue advocating, because we need the 2nd Avenue Subway. We need to make sure the federal funding was promised and made. Let's stop the fighting. Let's work together and keep the peace and move forward, not backwards. As Edith Prentice says, get over it. And let's get over it and let's move it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Brian Fritsch.
Good afternoon, everybody. Jason Anthony, the Transit Guru. Let's talk about the 2nd Avenue Subway, Phase 2. We all know that the federal government, especially Donald John Trump and Shannon Patrick Duffy, wants to grab the funds away from us. We're not going to let them take the funds away. So we are going to let them know no funds taken away from us, because we are New York, that Empire State, and what you guys do to us is going to do to you guys not double, but triple. Because our beloved governor, Kathy Hochul, always puts New York's interests first. Because Donald John Trump is a narcissistic person. He always puts his own interests first instead of the Americans' interests first. Let's talk about Omni for a second. We know that Omni is working, but in a delayed way. But let's address Nassau County, because I have been to Nassau County already. But my tap-to-go payment didn't work. Let's work with not so nice, like I call it, to see if they could put toward their Omni machines and Omni waiters in their not so nice buses to see when we travel to the future on Nassau County to see if their Omni readers work in the future. So that's all I have to say for this month. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Brian Fritsch, followed by Michael Cohen.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Fritsch, Associate Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA PCAC. We were thrilled to hear about the RFP for almost 2,400 new subway cars, the MTA's largest ever order, and a key part of the current capital plan. The R62s and R62As have served the MTA and riders well, but we're very excited about the enhanced security and accessibility features, the push for lighter rolling stock to make the trains more energy efficient, and more trains with open gangway design to add capacity and make subway surfing nearly impossible. Replacing over 36% of the fleet is a huge endeavor, and we look forward to hearing more about the final design choices. The MTA is building while Washington tries to halt infrastructure investment and kill jobs. Their refusal to honor the full funding grant agreement for the 2nd Avenue subway is a farce, and we applaud Governor Hochul and the MTA for taking the feds to court. You'd think, at this point, after congestion pricing, counterterrorism funding, and the Gateway program, Secretary Duffy would be tired of losing funding fights and lawsuits with New York, but here we are again. As we told Jose Martinez of the city, this crap is just getting old. We hope for a quick and clear resolution. Finally, we're looking forward to the IEC update on the Omni transition today. We've heard from our members and riders who feel the system has made immense reliability improvements over the past half year. We're also pleased to hear that more customer-facing enhancements are on the way, including integration with the MTA app, critical info on reader screens that riders have asked for. We're also pushing the NYC DOE to work harder to get digital Omni cards off the ground. Students deserve an Omni card they can rely on. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Cohen, followed by Andy Pollack.
Hi, I'm Michael Cohen, and I'm speaking on my own behalf about the 2nd Avenue subway. I would like to have the 2nd Avenue subway go both west along 125th Street and also south for phase 3 and 4. The reason being is that the Lower East Side does not have a lot of subway connections, particularly Alphabet City, and it would be great to have additional subway connections there because that is one of the most bus-dependent areas in Manhattan, and it'd be great to have more subway options for there as well because those areas of the Lower East Side aren't really so well served by the subway, and they're far from a subway stop currently, and they deserve to have access to the subway as well, in addition to bus service. And for those areas facing a long walk to the subway station, particularly the Lexington Avenue line, it'd be great if they had a subway line closer to their neighborhood, their area of the city. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Andy Pollack, followed by Aleda Dupree.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Andy Pollack from Passengers United. So 2 things we're going to discuss for this month. Number 1, we at Passengers United are very happy about the news regarding the R262 trains and the R268 specifically. This is long overdue, especially on the Lexington Avenue line, the 4, 5, and 6, which is the busiest subway line in the entire subway system. Some of the R62 trains date back to as far back as 40 years. So we're very happy that the chairman announced this news last week, and it's a long time coming. All right, now let's talk about Omni. So a couple concerns with Omni. Number 1, right now on Apple Pay, you can't load your Omni card specifically onto the app. So hopefully the MTA can maybe reach out to Tim Cook at Apple and get that sorted out so we can add our Omni options to Apple Pay. Also, again, lack of Omni machines. Again, there's still vacant subway spaces that used to have MetroCard machines, and Omni machines can be put there. Also, Nassau County, Hempstead Transit Center. There's no Omni machines in Hempstead Transit Center. So So I just want to put that for the record. So that should be also presented. And on the Omni Reader itself, there was talk about seeing how much available balance there is on the Omni card once you tap and go. Because right now we don't have a dedicated Omni app at the moment. All we just have is the Omni website, and we have to access our transactions and our balance on our mobile web browser, which I think is ridiculous. And then also, one more thing about Omni. On the Q76 specifically, I don't know why on the Q76, most of the Omni readers are not working. Because then when you transfer to another bus, you have to tap and go that way. So please just look into that. So with that, thank you for letting me speak, and I hope to speak sometime in April. Thank you.
Our final speaker will be Alita Dupree.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Jano Lieber and members. Alita Dupree for the record. She and her with Team Folds. It's been a while. It's 9:25 where I'm sitting right now. Hope to see you soon. I'm really looking forward to the new subway cars that we're going to be purchasing for the A division, the historical interborough rapid transit lines. And as much as I like old subway cars and their traditions, I'm looking forward to these new subway cars. And we're going to have new traditions. I think Jerry Rafferty will be very proud because he often shared of New York City and working on his songs. Omni is essential. I hope to be back soon and use it soon. I have a close family member who has taken the subway fairly recently, and they have not had any problems with Omni. So I think we have moved past these issues that we had in the later part of last year. Fare gates are essential. I went to the Bay Area, and BART has these new fare gates, and they're working pretty well. I haven't really had hardly any issues with them. And they certainly reflect the idea that BART is the people's system. There's many things that we can do, especially the things that we can't see, such as electricity. Being able to rebuild our electrical system. We get these nice subway cars, which I hope we will get soon, but we have to have electricity to run them. And we have to continue working on the signaling to get more CBTC. I know I'm getting confused here. I'm tired. It's early. But thank you for the work of Capital. And we can never have enough Grand Central Terminal. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair, that concludes the public comment session.
Okay, thank you to our public speakers, to everybody who came, especially thank you for the brevity of some of our good friends' regular public comments. The February committee meetings minutes have been distributed and are available on the website. Changes or comments? Mr. Albert, looking at you.
Yes, if you download the book today, all the changes have been reflected, all the corrections have been made.
Okay. All right, so with that, motion to approve, second. Thank you, Ms. Lopez. All in favor? Minutes are approved. Changes to the work plan. Mr. Torres-Springer.
Mr. Chair, there are some changes to the work plan. As mentioned last month, today we're presenting the Systems Business Unit, which now includes an update on Omni. We're also moving the expansion project update to April and some other changes to align the schedule as shown in the book.
Okay, since there are changes, I need a motion to approve. Mr. Jones, thank you. Second. Thank you, Mr. Zuckerman. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The changes to the work plan are approved. With that, Mr. Torres-Springer, President's report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members of the committee. We'll just, good afternoon. I'm sure we're pulling up the presentation. There you go. Thank you. Actually, as we launch in, I did want to introduce the committee to Michelle Thompson, who's taking over as C&D's, sorry, Michelle, you weren't warned, as C&D's Agency Equal Employment Opportunity Chief. Thank you. And that's a member of our senior leadership. I mean, that's an absolutely critical issue and set of issues that Michelle works on with the Department of Diversity and Civil Rights under Lourdes Zapata. So we're very pleased that Michelle's taking over. Sorry to surprise you, Michelle. Yeah. All right, so lots of important business today. We're starting off with an image of the Harlem 148th Street accessibility project, which is projected to open this spring. This station is being made ADA accessible with ramps, which is a better, faster, cheaper way to make stations ADA accessible. And of course, it's one of 40 stations that we have in construction for ADA accessibility across the system, 36 of which are in the subway system right now. Starting off with a major step forward in our 25 to 29 capital plan. Everybody knows all about this. So we're kicking off the largest subway car order in the history of the MTA last week with the solicitation for almost up to 2,400 new subway cars, the R262s. We're going to replace more than a third of our subway fleet with that full order and potentially all of the cars on the A division, the numbered lines. Of course, the 25 to 29 plan that we all fought for and were funded by the governor and the legislature has $7.6 billion set aside for New York City Transit rolling stock. The Interborough Express team continues their public outreach as part of the design and engineering of the future project. We've heard from thousands of New Yorkers in the last year. We're kickstarting the latest round of meetings at Brooklyn Community Board 18 tonight, and this is the first in a series of 14 meetings with every community board along the entire future Interborough Express. There's also an additional 6 public workshops planned for the spring. Going to meet with local community groups and even expand youth engagement in schools this year. It's an important part of a great project, and the planning process and the input has been really useful to the team to date. There's also some exciting procurement items coming to the committee today, and you'll hear more detail about them from our General Counsel, Evan Iceland. But I want to start with the next phase of the Grand Central train shed. As you know, late last year we announced an expansion of our partnership with J.P. Morgan Chase to rebuild the Metro-North train shed. You all know this carries 98% of the Metro-North service. It's falling down due to a century of water and chemical infiltration. And Chase is taking on that work, or continuing to take on that work, alongside the construction that they're doing on Park Avenue. So we have the official action today, which, once approved, allows us to formalize Chase's $50 million contribution and acting on our behalf to rebuild Sector 2 between East 46th and 50th Streets, East 50th Streets. With this work agreed upon and the 2 blocks that Vornado and Citadel have agreed to take on from 50th to 52nd Street, with their additional contribution, we will be at more than 50% of the train shed rebuilt or under construction, which is a big improvement on the 35-year plan to fix this critical asset that we found when C&D was created and came on the scene to accelerate this work. I also know we're very happy. We've also agreed with the city to rebuild the Park Avenue malls along this stretch, and it's going to be a great improvement to the quality of those malls. And that's with the city's support and funding. There's no additional cost to the MTA from that work. So that action will come to the committee when we get to it. We're also bringing an action to the committee and the full board to award the next major contract for 2nd Avenue Subway, Phase 2, subject, of course, to the uncertainty created by the federal government's recent refusal to reimburse us for the project under our contractual agreement from 2023. We've discussed the history and the purpose of this project, so I'll summarize. It fulfills a promise almost a century old to bring subway service to East Harlem, adding 110,000 daily riders at 3 new stations, and improving the entire subway network, making it flow a lot better across the whole system through a series of improvements. Governor Hochul and the leadership of the new MTA Chair, I don't think we found the best picture of you and I here, but we got a great shot of the governor. Yeah, yeah. I'm not too happy with my own shot either, but great picture of the governor.
The governor looks good. That's
right.
Keep good.
Right. So we're committing to delivering this project on time and on budget, and we continue to do so. And will do so if we're able to follow through and award this contract as soon as possible, which is one of the reasons that we're bringing this to the board, so we're prepared to move quickly once federal uncertainty is resolved. I'm going to give you a little more background on the project and the contract, along with my colleagues here from our project team. The project, as you know, is the most cost-effective of its kind in the nation on a per-rider basis. And we listened to the critics, and we learned the lessons from Phase 1 and have been relentless in seeking out ways to deliver it better, faster, and cheaper. That includes value engineering the design, including not overbuilding our back of house, using design build to share risk more effectively, which we're really seeing the benefits of here with this award, streamlining our contracts, taking care of property acquisition and utility relocation in advance. All of these measures translate to at least $1.3 billion in savings on this overall scope of work and a 10% cost reduction from Phase 1.
Can I interrupt?
Please.
I'm looking at Mr. Jones and Mr. Albert, Haida, Mahaltzis, folks who were on the board for a few years. This is what Jamie just outlined is what we talked about in the Cost Control Committee, if you remember, a few years back. Changing the contracts to eliminate the MTA premium, cutting scope so that you were not digging a lot, you were not doing a ton more excavation than absolutely necessary. Being more aggressive about how we use design build to get better deals from the industry. This is that cost control agenda, and they've made it real. So, I just want to underscore there's a history here on this board of this specific initiatives that you're seeing that are paying dividends here. Anyway, interruption over.
Thank you. And of course, one of the things we did was we streamlined down to 4 contracts from dozens of contracts, Phase 1, dozens of contracts for Grand Central Madison. So this is very simple to keep track of. Contract 1 and 2 are awarded. They're under construction. This is Contract 3. And what we've done, and the chair just talked about in terms of cost savings initiative, it really applies to this contract we're bringing to the board today. This is the cut and cover work to create the new station box at 106th Street and connect it to the Phase 1 tunnel to the south and the pre-existing 1970s tunnel to the north. And you can see that we're showing that there was a cut and cover component of Phase 1. We're 12% cheaper than that cut and cover component on a per linear foot basis, and that translates to $120 million in savings. I want to pass it on to our project team for more detail about this contract and the award. That's Matt Zetwalk, Deputy Project Executive for 2nd Avenue Subway, and Jignesh Shah, who's our Project Executive for Contract 3. Also, Evan will give us some more background on this. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Chair Lieber. This project is not only vitally important for our East Harlem residents, communities, customers, but it's also a once-in-a-lifetime project to be a part of. Our entire project management team is laser-focused on delivering this project safely, successfully on time, and on budget. In addition to effective planning and project management, our project teams are aggressively advancing this project on multiple fronts across all 4 contracts. Not only taking advantage of bundling, design build, and lessons learned from Phase 1, but also deploying all the tools and expertise we've been building at MTA Construction and Development over the past several years, which we'll be presenting an update on in next month's April CPC. All of this while making sure we're deploying the full weight of construction and development, working to deliver this truly integrated project, better, faster, cheaper, which remains on budget and on schedule. Next slide. Contract 1, in advance of next month's CPC, where we'll provide a full recap of the entire 2nd Avenue Subway Phase 2 program, I'd like to share some brief updates on the accomplishments our teams have made thus far and how vital it is to keep building on the momentum that our project teams have established as we look to award Contract 3. On Contract 1, our utility relocation work led by Project CEO Mike Fitzpatrick, Nitin Patel, and Rashonda Parker, our utility relocations have advanced significantly. Gas, power, water, sewer, and telecommunications are rapidly being relocated. In addition, underpinning of adjacent buildings to our Contract 3 work has already commenced, where we'll be actively drilling piles to stabilize 100-year-old buildings and minimize ground settlement when excavating for a new 106th Street station. Like most utility relocations, this is complicated work, and our project teams have overcome significant challenges to keep this project on schedule and on budget. Contract 2, our tunneling contract, which was awarded last September and led by our project CEO, Kurt Egger. This project team has hit the ground running, steadily advancing our final design and nearly 30 design units, and have already secured critical permits which allow early work to commence as our final design nears nearly 50%. In the interim, our design builder has already mobilized on multiple fronts and is actively underway with construction, installing supportive excavation C-cam piles at both our new 125th Street station entrances. This work is especially critical. This provides access for excavating over 100 feet down beneath 125th Street to start blasting through Manhattan schist and bedrock for our station cavern. In addition to this, we've already started our environmental work to abate existing buildings for our 120th Street bell mount shaft and make way for launching our tunnel boring machines early next year, which is currently on schedule. With all this work advancing, our project teams are maintaining an aggressive schedule, and the project remains on budget and on schedule. For Contract 3, led by our project CEO, Jignesh Shah, who you'll hear from next, it's important to reemphasize how especially critical, complex, and challenging Contract 3 is. It is essentially the linchpin for Phase 2. In addition to this work, it is the most public-facing, which will excavate nearly 5 city blocks of open-cut trench nearly 60 feet deep along 2nd Avenue from 105th to 110th Street. This will connect the existing Section 11 tail tracks from Phase 1 to Section 13, the tunnel box abandoned in the 1970s. Due to high water tables and soft ground conditions, this phase of the project has significant geotechnical challenges in comparison to other sections of tunnel mined in dense fill and hard rock conditions further along 2nd Avenue. This phase sets the alignment of our new right-of-way. It picks up where the tail tracks currently terminate, south of 105th Street, while also breaking through the existing bulkhead of our active end-of-line storage for Q trains. All of this while maintaining vehicle traffic, pedestrian crossings, and neighboring businesses and residential tenants immediately adjacent to our excavation along 2nd Avenue. When complete, we will then reinstall all relocated temporary utilities moved under Contract 1 and restore the streets and sidewalks above, prior to Contract 4 fitting out our new 106th Street station. Because this phase of the project has so many opportunities for alternative excavation methods, variable waterproofing conditions, and complex structural design opportunities, it made this phase of the project the perfect candidate for design build, which is why we put so much emphasis on the selected design builder's approach for this project, which our project CEO, Jignesh Shah, will walk us through now. Jignesh?
Thank you, Matt. So the construction limits between 105th Street and 110th Street under this contract is the area perhaps the most technically challenging of the whole project. The existing tunnel sections from 1970s on either side, the existing complex utilities on the top of the station box, very big duct bank consisting of fiber optic cables on west side of 2nd Avenue, unsatisfactory and very challenging soil material at the proposed excavation site, and very high water table are just some of the location, depth, and alignment constraints to name. Just to mention, the existing soft ground conditions won't support the tunnel boring or station mining, and that is why we will have approximately 1,400 feet long, 65 feet wide, and 60 feet deep open cut hole which spans 5 city blocks in the right-of-way of 2nd Avenue in middle of Manhattan. Next. Although we have these big challenges, we have sound solutions at our hands as well. As we all know, we have a very complex network of various utilities under our New York City streets. On 2nd Avenue subway phase 1, we had same type of open cut excavation at 96th Street Station, where we were encountering new surprises at every step as we were excavating and going down. It resulted in overall approximately 12 months of delays. As part of lessons learned, we had issued Contract 1 to relocate majority of utilities in advance from 2nd Avenue right-of-way to clear up open-cut excavation footprint of the station box and new connecting tunnels on the other side of the station box. We will carry out construction safely and efficiently around some of the surrounding more than 100 years old multi-story residential buildings on rubble foundations, which are just within 20 feet of support of excavation. We have historic buildings, schools, community, pedestrians around the construction all the times. So the design builder has listed very innovative ground improvement and building centering measures in their technical proposal. We will be installing approximately 1,100 second piles, part of our support of excavation system along both sides of 2nd Avenue, flip-flopping traffic from east to west with the DOT-approved traffic protection plans, and maintaining 4 lanes of traffic all the times. The special care will be taken to ensure the access to the buildings, businesses, and schools is continuously maintained. Design Builder has proposed strong technical approach and fully committed to handle the massive sewer crossings at 106th Street and 110th Street intersections. We will be hanging some of the critical utilities from the roadway decking, excavating approximately 215,000 cubic yards of soil, and casting approximately 40,000 cubic yards of concrete, building structural cell of station box, connecting tunnels to station entrances, and as well as we will support of excavation of the 2 ancillary buildings. I'll hand it over to Evan.
So at the sake of repeating, good? Yeah. Complex, challenging job, which is perfect for design build, and we've used a best value approach for selecting this design builder. We picked the design builder who was highest ranked technically, and again offers the best value. In order to come up with the best value, we evaluated how he was going to do the job, and we also evaluated the most important risks. The utility relocation risks, the buildings that are adjacent to the property, maintaining those buildings all present risks of time impact delays, right, and extra costs. And we factored those in when we did a best value determination. In the end, we know we've picked the best contractor for this project, and we were able to negotiate the price down over $150 million from the price he came in with. So we've done the right work here.
Thanks. So, as noted, the action that Evan will go through at the end of the meeting is to authorize the staff to award the contract. And as we've noted in the documents, there is the unnecessary uncertainty regarding the federal government's meeting its obligations to reimburse the MTA for funds that are expended on this project. And so, as we've noted, this may impact the timing of the award, which the staff will undertake once the board has authorized it.
Let's just be clear. What you're asking is an approval of the procurement, but you may not actually award the contract until the federal uncertainty is resolved. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So just so everyone's clear. So the award, the fact that we're being asked to approve the award, is just to cut short the timing if and when we get a court decision that allows us to move forward or the administration changes its position. Mr. Albert.
Is there a legal time limit for the feds to decide to appeal the recent decision or not?
Yes, there's always a legal. You're talking about the Gateway decision?
No, 2nd Avenue. MTA just filed recently?
Yeah, we just filed. The status of the litigation is that we filed, and there's a motion pending for expedited treatment of the issue,
I see.
which the judge has not decided, so we're sort of in the early phases of that litigation. But depending on this decision on the motion, it may move, within weeks versus a little bit longer. Okay, Mr. Grodny.
I think I saw on the chart an estimated completion date of September 2032. Does that include any delay as a result of litigation, or is that just the move ahead without any break?
Yeah, that's the completion date agreed to between the federal government and the MTA in 2023. And, both parties certainly committed to doing everything in their power to achieve that completion date. And, I'll note that certainly, we work with the FTA almost every day on ensuring that we are able to hit the milestones. One of the milestones that we committed to was bringing this contract to the board in March of 2026 and awarding the contract shortly thereafter.
Mr. Zuckerman.
If this is not too effortful, it would be a useful reminder for this board and maybe the public about what the components or what the proportion of federal contribution is to Second Avenue subway versus what we are funding ourselves. Could you,
Sure.
Can you answer that?
Yeah, it's out of the $7 billion budget, the federal commitment is $3.4 billion, which I believe is 44.2% of the funding for the project.
And then this portion that they're refusing to fund is what again?
We've been submitting, as is our practice and our obligation, we've been submitting for reimbursement as we've paid out funds to the project, and we have not received a reimbursement since October of 2025, and that the amount that's not reimbursed at this point is $58.3 million.
Okay, and therefore, what have we spent in total on this project? Just to put in context, if you don't have the number, it's fine.
I'll have to get you that number.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then last one, then tied to this request for awarding this contract to vote on it. I assume we're not therefore obliged to then sign the agreement and with the prospective awardee until we have clarity on the funding?
Well, what we've said is that with the board's authorization, the staff, may then act. Yeah.
I mean, these sophisticated contractors were, Skanska, among other things, did the 33rd Street Concourse in Penn Station for us. They've done many, many other projects. Walsh, Trail, they're all sophisticated contractors who understand the situation we're in. Melvin Miller.
Sure, just really quick, 2 questions. So just to be clear, you will not be coming back to the board for authorization to move this forward because we're giving it today if we vote yes. Okay.
That's right.
Second question is, I'm really curious, how do you negotiate down, I think you said 150 million for a design builder? I've dealt with many design builders before. What types of things get negotiated to reduce the cost that much? Just curious.
So we generally ask the contractor where they see risk in our contract documents. As Jano mentioned, that's sort of transferring the risk to the place most comfortable with it. So that is something we look at. So we sometimes, yes, if it's something that we can handle better than the contractor can. In this case, we have an allowance for certain impacts that might affect utilities, utility costs that we can't predict, and we were making them take that as a fixed price, for an example, and now it's an allowance, so it's been what the utilities charge us to move at the end of the project. That's one example. We are availability of funding is a big issue for them. In a design-build project, they've done a good amount of the design already. So we've agreed to compensate them for the design that's been completed sooner than we might otherwise, so they get some money up front. We're paying for something that they've already done. Those types of things are the kinds of things that we negotiate, and then we just tell them if they really want the job, they're going to lower their price. I mean, that's the...
So we're not necessarily getting anything less, but we're just negotiating some of the parts that would drive the cost up to maybe the split risk or
So there
provide
are
funding.
times where we'll say something is better done in someplace else. We might take something out, but for the most part, all of this savings came from the contractor.
I mean, I think you focus on the right thing, which is debating who owns what risk and having discussion about how serious those risks are. It allows contractors to reevaluate a risk and to price it downward as they have more discussion. And there's more discussion about means and methods. How are you going to do the work? What will we let you do? In this case, if you read the staff summary, there was a lot of discussion about the secant piles and whether the supportive excavation, the temporary supportive excavation versus a permanent approach. So there's a lot of engineering discussion that goes into this as well.
If I could give one more example that I think was an interesting one to me, so I'll share it with the board. Was this contractor proposed being able to rely on the friction of the surrounding soil, which would save him some costs of doing some additional pumping, which our engineers evaluated and said, well, that's a good idea. So it was an alternative technical concept that we accepted in that case, which again lowered the price a little. I mean, we do a lot of that as part of the process.
Mr. Leathers.
You spoke of the quality of the soil and the water table, the positions of the water table. That could be an intrusion problem in the future. What are you prepared to do, or the contractors prepared to do, in order to mitigate something like that?
Well, I'll let my technical colleagues here speak to that, but I can tell you that in this case, we had proposals from the other contractors to use the supportive excavation as part of the tunnel wall, which was could have been a cost savings effort, but in the end, we did not feel that that would give us the longest life, the best resiliency. These are tunnels that are supposedly impervious. We know nothing's impervious to water, but these are not drain tunnels. They're supposed to keep the water out of them. They've got waterproofing. I mean, Matt, Jignesh, you want to give them some more?
So basically, Evan covered it, but basically the support of excavation is totally independent, and the station structural box will be 100% encapsulated in the waterproofing system. So the support of excavation is kind of like a throwaway throwaway system. It's totally independent, so which can be helpful for our 100-year design life of the structure and water intrusion issues. And that was one of the factors for technical evaluation, for the design builders.
I mean, in fact, Chris, what I think we're hearing is that the reliability from a water protection standpoint of the approach that this contractor was taking was one of the things that won him the job.
Yes.
They actually having a more water protective system was a major plus that actually won him the job.
This was one of the deciding factors.
Yeah. Other questions? I think it's good to have this technical discussion so people understand just how complicated this stuff is. This is not just a matter of digging a hole. This is really challenging. Not to mention there's a 19th century sewer main, water main right in the middle of 2nd Avenue, right? I mean, this is really tough stuff. All right. So are we moving on to the next item?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so on to the business unit report. We have the systems business unit this month. I want to remind the committee that we created a separate systems business unit a couple years back, actually brainchild of Mark Roche over there, in recognition that while we still do get to do lots of interesting civil work like we just described, increasingly we're all effectively IT contractors, and a lot of the sophisticated systems that have to be installed across the subway system in particular really require dedicated attention. So we've built up a business unit over the last couple of years to do that. It's headed by Barney Gray, who's going to lead the presentation. And I would also note that as Barney assembles his team, we've brought in the Omni system and the person who has led the completion of the Omni system for C&D, which is Tim Kaiser, and Tim is now also taking on our new modern Fairgate program as that expands beyond the pilot that we're in the midst of. So over to you, Barney.
Thank you, President. Chairman and members of the board, pleasure to see everyone today and just give you a small look into what the systems business unit is doing. So as we know, systems are the core of our ability to secure, protect, and provide our millions of passengers each day that commute they have gone to expect, appreciate, and rely on. And when I spoke on this when we met in 2025, how our work is vital to everyday experience and safety of millions of passengers each day, there's an array of systems that working together and depend on one another to operate reliably so that riders know when their train will be arriving, can utilize their phones for voice and data services while they utilize the system, or have access to a variety of other services, whether it be for convenience, safety, or public announcements. And that also includes access to help points if they need assistance. All this in-station technology converges in a local communication room, which is the central nervous system of the station. The systems business unit continues to develop new approaches to making the infrastructure more efficient, and we're always integrating new technologies. You'll hear about some of them today. To deliver our projects better, faster, and cheaper, we created a unit that's able to address both the current and future needs of the business. Our portfolio has grown to $7.6 billion in projects, more than double what we reported on just last year. This work is premised around 4 major categories. Access and security are the eyes and the ears of the operation and how we manage operations from the moment you enter the station. Networking, there we go. Networking is the backbone of it all that transports all the data and gives us the ability to keep expanding technology. Facilities and computing allow us to gather data and support the various needs of the system with the appropriate tools and personnel. And communications is how we communicate with our riders, both audibly and visually, many of which are expanding rapidly. Though varying in size, each facet is equally important to the service we provide. I'd like to introduce Tim Kaiser, our VP of Delivery, to talk about the Omni project, the progress to date, and what's next. Tim?
Thank you, Barney. At the end of 2025, we celebrated substantial completion of the Omni capital project with over $60 million returned to the capital budget, an Omni adoption rate of over 98%, and the retirement of the Metro card. This marks the completion of the MTA's transition to tap and ride at a moment when the system is processing almost 6 million daily taps across all modes of transportation. In 2026, we are continuing to move forward with key enhancements and features planned in line with customer feedback that I'll talk about in a moment. First, let's talk a bit more about the recent history of the Omni program at C&D. Many will remember that construction development took this project over in the first quarter of 2023. After first restructuring the project team and rebaselining the project schedule, we had set 2 primary objectives for ourselves. First, to develop and deploy the technology needed to support customers across all ridership classes in transition from MetroCard to Tap and Ride before the end of 2025. And second, to complete the capital project of the Omni program within the approved budget. Both objectives have been achieved. The technology needed to support all customers in transitioning to Tap and Ride was delivered by the end of 2024. This then provided us a full year to complete those transitions and systematically retire all MetroCard sales channels, both vending machines and bulk sales, which we completed in December. Earlier this year, Omni service was also launched at the Nassau Intercounty Express Bus and Westchester Beeline Bus, which were the final 2 legacy MetroCard affiliate organizations. Building on these successes, we have several important initiatives underway to provide additional features and functionalities that are consistent with feedback we've received from customers. First, software testing of the virtual OmniCard products is underway, with beta tests on track for the second quarter of this year and wider launch of these products planned for the second half of 2026. Second, based on the feedback we've heard from customers, new technology to improve customer transparency will also be released in the second half of this year. Riders have said they want to better understand fare cap status, trip and charge history, and they want to more easily manage payment options, including loading value on closed-loop cards. We're developing all of that this year and working with MTA IT to deliver it all through the new MTA mobile application. We also have enhancements to the onboard validation devices used by the Eagle team to provide more expeditious proof of payment on buses to be deployed in the first half of this year. And lastly, crews will continue removing all legacy MetroCard equipment through the end of the year.
Tim, I just want I just want to emphasize what you just, because I know we heard it from the podium, you hear it on occasion. Why aren't these, why can't I put my OmniCard into my Apple Wallet? Why isn't there sort of the app? Why isn't the app connected, telling me how much balance I have left? The truth is, the contract for this was signed before the Apple Wallet and Google Wallet existed. So, we had to restructure the contract and get their deliverables that we had to get at the end of the contract. We focused first on what we got done last year, which is basically making sure that everyone in the city is able to use Omni. And we got that done. That allows us to sunset MetroCard. Now we're focusing on wrapping up these things. So I just want to emphasize that Tim just said it. Virtual card, that'll get it into the wallet. Customer transparency tools and tie it into the app, right? That's all coming this year.
Correct. Now let's turn our sights to the commuter railroad payment system. Since our last update to the committee, this work has progressed and is now well underway. The integrated back office across both railroads is active, and over half of the legacy ticket vending machines at Long Island Railroad and Metro North have been replaced with new modern devices. As you may recall, upgrades to the train time mobile ticketing application was also released in January 2026. Ongoing efforts through the third quarter of this year include deployment of new ticket office machines, introduction of split payment functionality at both vending machines and ticket offices, and completion of the vending machine rollout, all by the start of the fourth quarter of the year. That concludes the Omni update. Thank you. Back to Barney.
I want to pause and see if there are any questions. It's such a public-facing, high-profile initiative. Andrew Albert?
Yeah, thank you, Tim, for that. One of the things I hear very frequently from riders is, when am I going to be able to see when I tap or I touch a screen how much value is left on my Omni, when have I hit my 12 trips and the rest free, all of that kind of stuff on a screen.
Second half of the year is when we're playing that. Yeah, that'll be through the MTA mobile application.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate that update. I'll now highlight 3 additional projects within the business unit, starting with the upgrade of emergency alarm and emergency telephone systems. These devices are installed along the right-of-way. Every 500 feet and are used in emergencies to shut off third rail power locally and send a help signal to the Rail Control Center. This project is upgrading these units at 31 stations to ensure that workers on the track have reliable access to these critical emergency devices. But there's so much more behind the scenes. We're also replacing substation and comm room components to power the overall system, and we're running miles of new cable to ensure that communications are reliable and secure. We're also piloting a new intelligent telephone system that sends information on the status of the unit back to the RCC. This will allow us to more proactively monitor the health of the system and understand what alarms and phones may need replacement. The project remains on budget despite an 8-month delay, and we are actively working with the contractor and New York City Transit to mitigate the delay and bring the schedule back to the original date. As I said at the beginning, our network infrastructure is the backbone of everything. We could not deliver any of these benefits without the telecommunications network and infrastructure that connect it all. Our connection-oriented Ethernet project will allow us to keep expanding our bandwidth and provide state-of-the-art equipment and technology, now and in the future. Fiber cables, like the one you see here, are the highway that transfer data. They carry video, train arrival data, and more between stations and to our centralized command centers. Old cabling just doesn't have the bandwidth to meet the demands of 21st century technology. So we're replacing 150,000 feet of fiber optic cable and making significant upgrades to the comm rooms they connect into. Together, these underpin the station control, communication, security, and surveillance capabilities. Once this project is completed, more information will be accessible remotely, providing real-time video and data across the system. This project, which was awarded in December of 2023, is 44% complete and forecasting to finish on time and on budget. The last item on my agenda today is our communications work, which is focused primarily on improving the passenger address customer information system screens, also known as PACIS. PACIS is a crucial communication system for the MTA and is designed to provide real-time information to passengers regarding train arrival and service updates. Many of these systems, however, are out of date and can only provide static messaging through obsolete speakers and screens. Many of the customer information systems on the L line were installed more than 20 years ago, and they are not connected to the more modern centralized information systems. This project will connect these stations to the centralized network and allow faster, more dynamic, customer messaging to be made available. And customers will be able to clearly hear and see these messages through high-resolution LCD screens and clear modern speaker systems. Right now, we are in active construction at 24 stations in both Brooklyn and Manhattan, and we're upgrading back-of-house station communication rooms and a whole host of platform equipment before we get to the customer-facing screens and speakers that will be installed over the next few months. And that's just the beginning. We have lots more where that came from, and I will now turn it over to Kara Cortian, our Senior Director in C&D's Asset Planning Division. Thank you.
Thank you, Barney. You've heard about the many projects already underway to maintain systems in the subway. Now I'd like to share how we are planning for the next generation of technology. This requires taking a look at two pieces, both the back and the front of house. Behind the scenes, we are upgrading hidden infrastructure, things like the head-in software and fiber optic cable underpinning our customer communication system. At the same time, we are developing a long-range vision for what these systems should look like in the future. This work will position us to readily integrate new and emerging technology to create a modern, convenient, and frictionless experience for our customers. At the front of house, we are testing this new technology, particularly in our stations and on platforms. This will ensure the $1.2 billion designated for communication systems in the 25-29 capital plan results in new capabilities to improve the customer experience. We are actively exploring new products and cutting-edge innovation in the market and across peer systems globally for benefits that could transfer to our system. We are looking at speakers that have the ability to automatically adjust volume based on noise level and even issue warning sounds to customers who step too close to the platform edge. There's also lighting integrated with train arrival and departure for additional customer safety and comfort, and new screens that can provide real-time updates beyond arrival time. We intend to pilot new digital signage on our platforms, integrating with the dynamic signage on our new rail cars like you may have seen on the R211s. This will create a seamless experience for customers to understand service status, route changes, and station navigation. I'd also like to highlight the success of our partnership with Bolden, where we continue to improve customer connectivity by expanding cell service to customers in tunnels. Since last year's systems update to the board, Bolden has finished construction and expanded their service areas to include the 4-5 train between Borough Hall in Brooklyn and Fulton in Manhattan, and on the G train from Court Square in Queens to Hoyt-Skimmerhorn in Brooklyn. Bolden is working hard to get cell carriers signed up for these completed corridors, and so far AT&T customers benefit. And there's more to come. Bolden is currently adding cellular infrastructure along the Lexington line from 59th Street to 125th, piggybacking on a pre-existing project without additional outages to our passengers on the 4, 5, and 6 lines. We anticipate work to be completed later this year. In addition, planning is underway to bundle this work with the CBTC project along the A and the C lines in Brooklyn and Queens.
Sorry, but before you leave that slide,
That's
you
actually
mentioned
the end of our business unit presentation, so we can.
Okay, because
we can
you
open it up,
mentioned
yeah.
the 4 and 5 from Borough Hall to Fulton, and it says Bowling Green to Fulton, so I'm wondering which one is right.
These are additional expansion that was made, but it is now completed from Bowling Green, Borough Hall to Fulton.
To Fulton.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Zuckerman.
I'm going to elevate it from that very specific question to a bigger question, which is, I don't understand the economic structure of this deal, how this works between Bolton and the MTA and AT&T or whomever. Could you, without sharing that something you don't want to talk about in public, I'd like to I don't understand what, whomever. I just don't understand how the deal works. What's the deal?
Yeah. So the board approved this deal a couple years ago. In that deal, Bolden, which is a third-party provider, pulls the fiber cable, or funds the pulling of the fiber cable and the antennas throughout the tunnel system, which is pretty complicated business. They actually partnered with us to get the stations done, but getting the signal into the tunnels is harder. They're the old Transit Wireless. It's about $1 billion of work to get it done throughout the underground system, and they're doing that. It's on their dime, and no cost to the MTA, no cost to the rider. Bolden then in turn goes and partners with the 3 cell carriers that serve the city, and they sign up to provide the signal, and that's how Bolden is making its money back. And so far, we've had actually all 3 providers signed up and have lit up the shuttle between Grand Central and Times Square. And we've got AT&T on board. As Kara said, now if you're an AT&T user, you have a signal from Borough Hall all the way to Fulton and on the G train. And we also, I will say, just have made huge strides to get to a different and much more streamlined way of installing this equipment in the Lex line and the Fulton Liberty line that we mentioned here below. And we're really looking forward to the other carriers signing up. I mean, I think they all recognize that there's a real, it's obviously a big captive rider audience, and also there's a big digital equity issue here.
So what's the bottleneck against, because obviously the consumer wants it. We obviously don't want disrupting service, but clearly we're okay if they're going to build, just like when Outfront put all the signs in all the stations, we're perfectly happy to other people put capital on the ground that we don't have to. What's the bottleneck with the carriers signing up? Like I'm sorry, I just don't get the deal for them.
I can't speak for them. I think it's a business decision making on their parts. I hear that we're making some progress, but we agree this ought to be a very big priority for those cell carriers.
They do have the same negotiation for cell towers.
Yes.
Where one carrier will say AT&T, but then in order to make it viable, they have to get the other carriers, Verizon and the rest, to buy in, and it's all an economic. Do they get a return on investment?
No carrier is going to want to be left out of it, obviously.
Well, it's not entirely clear. That's not, Bolden is trying to get all of them to sign up. And if that were easy, it would accelerate the deployment throughout the system. We are dependent on Bolden's ability to make these capital investments economically viable.
Let me just ask a question. I don't know. It's a more rhetorical question than it is expecting an answer right now. But is there anything we could provide as an incentive, whether that back to the aforementioned digital signage, robbing Peter to pay Paul within our organization, to motivate the carriers to get into this? Because clearly the consumer desperately wants this. I'm not sure I want everyone talking on their phones the whole time, but going station to station is not a great experience either. So are there any thoughts about what we can do to motivate the carriers?
I think quite honestly, board member, our 5 million daily riders a day is the greatest incentive that the carriers have, and I think we leave it to them to analyze this, and I'm very confident that they will see and understand that they need to sign up.
Well, since I'm sure AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and anyone else out there is watching these proceedings all the time, I urge the 3 companies, particularly Verizon, which originally was, of course, 9X, I urge them to find their way here to become our primary carrier in the subway. We would love you for generations to come. Thank you.
Good point. Other questions or comments on, we've seen a lot of material. Yeah.
This is a comment. The electronic billboards that we have that give countdown clocks, they are wonderfully accurate. They are better. The new maps that have a weekend-only version is really helpful to riders. Hopefully, at one point, we'll have a real-time map. So whatever time it is you're looking, that's what's being served. Middle of the night, rush hour, weekday, weekend. But people are really enjoying the new information that is available on these electronic screens. So kudos to Outfront for doing that.
Well, a lot of the underlying information is coming from the MTA, you know, so let's not miss a chance to congratulate the folks at the MTA who do that, yeah. And I just remind all of us that part of the customer-facing, we're coming up on an update to our app. So that's going to be, I think, another major shot in the arm for customers in general. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Suresh, come on up. I just remind all of us that every month they report on what's being presented, but they're also giving us a broader report on the status of a lot of capital projects. So let's listen to what they have to say.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. Today I'm presenting on the IEC's review of 3 projects in C&D's Systems Business Unit. We begin with an update on the emergency alarm project for system installation at 36 stations and 15 substations. While currently forecasting an October 2028 completion date, the contractor plans to mitigate what is an 8-month delay due to ongoing asbestos surveys and abatement by expanding installation teams from 2 to 6 by the second quarter of 2026. The IEC supports this approach. Based on available contingency and the project reserve, the IEC finds that there is sufficient funding to cover the asbestos abatement, additional survey expenses, and extended project duration. The IEC notes 2 risks that may impact this project being done before October 2028. Limited availability of NYCT staff to support the contractor's proposed expedited installation, delays in obtaining track access, and limited flagging support due to concurrent NYCT construction work. Next, we are reporting on the Connection-Oriented Ethernet COE Phase 3C project with completion forecast by December 2028. After a detailed analysis of the budget, the IEC has determined that there is sufficient funding to complete the COE project. Milestones 1, 2, and 3 were completed since our last report, and the project remains on schedule despite risks which include supply chain delays on long lead items, obtaining track access, and limited MTA support staff for software acceptance and system integration testing. Our last project is Omni, which achieved substantial completion in December 2025 and is now in full beneficial use. The IEC notes that additional enhancements to further improve system reliability and new features are planned for completion in 2026. Our review indicates that the remaining budget is sufficient for final completion in December 2026. More information on remaining risks and C&D mitigations for all 3 projects we reviewed are detailed in the CPC book. Our reporting this month also includes the latest update to the Quarterly Traffic Light Report, TLR. This quarter, the IEC reviewed 18 systems projects, and we note that 2 triggered schedule variances, 1 due to insufficient MTA support, and the other due to difficulties securing general orders. Overall, a total of 239 projects for all MTA agencies were reviewed for cost and schedule. 215 projects, 90%, did not trigger a variance this quarter. 24 projects, or 10% of them, had variances, mostly 21 due to schedule issues, 2 for cost, and 1 for both cost and schedule. The full TLR report can be found in the committee book. Chair, this concludes our comments.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the IEC? How much time do you think they can shave off the emergency telephone project that's 8 months behind? Do you think they can shave half of that off with?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's what doubling the manpower can do.
Tripling.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or comments before we go to procurement? Thank you to the IEC. Mr. Iceland.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to do the procurements, and then I have an action item to do at the end separately. For procurements this month, Construction and Development is presenting items totaling $1.17 billion for approval. The first item, we're requesting that the board adopt a resolution pursuant to the Public Authorities Law, declaring that competitive bidding is impractical and that it's in the public interest for C&D to utilize a non-competitive procurement to first develop and implement enhancements to the automatic train supervision system. We refer to that as ATS-B. It's for the Transit's B division. And this is a system that allows dispatchers at the operations control centers to monitor the locations of trains in real time, and then also to provide 5G-based car-borne data communication system equipment for R160 and R179 cars to enable them to operate on the crosstown Fulton Liberty and 6th Avenue and 63rd Street lines as they become equipped for CBTC. We're also requesting the board approve the award of a non-competitive contract for these services to Siemens Mobility, Inc. in the amount of $120,950,000. Siemens designed, developed, and currently maintains the existing ATS system, and no other CBTC complier can perform the required software and infrastructure upgrades, although these enhancements that are being implemented will allow for greater competition in the future. And with regard to the 5G equipment, because Siemens designed the car-borne controller hardware and software for the R160 and 179 train fleets, they possess the proprietary knowledge necessary to develop the hardware and software interfaces required for integration of the new 5G DCS equipment into these trains. So we had a publicly advertised this procurement stating our intention to procure these services from Siemens through a non-competitive procurement, which is required by the Public Authorities Law and the All-Agency General Procurement Guidelines, and no vendor indicated that it can perform this work. The second item is for approval to award a publicly advertised and competitively solicited contract for design build services for Contract 3 for Phase 2 of the 2nd Avenue Subway Program to Skanska Walsh Trailer SAS2 C3 joint venture. Contract 3 is in the amount of $1,015,340,000 and a duration of 1,582 days. And as you heard in more detail earlier, this is for structural shells for the 106th Street station between 105th and 110th Street, and the tie-ins to connect the new 106th Street station to the structure to the existing tunnels located at 105th and at 110th on the north. And as previously mentioned and discussed, while we're seeking approval to award this contract now, the timing of the award may be impacted by the certainty surrounding the federal government's reimbursement of expenditures due under the full funding grant agreement for Phase 2. The next item is a new award to Elsley Technologies Corp. In the amount of $1.1 million to provide environmental analysis and testing services on an as-needed basis for bridges and tunnels coating projects. I also have a few modifications this month. The first is to a contract with Prismatic Development Corp. In connection with the Clifton Shop Reconstruction Project in the amount of $5 million to resolve all remaining claims on that contract. There's a modification to a contract with Siemens Mobility, Inc. in the amount of $2.5 million to procure additional spare parts for the onboard controller equipment for R179 cars. And the last is an item to request The last item is to request approval of a $20 million increase to the aggregate budget of a panel of 8 contracts that provide indefinite quantity architectural engineering design services, and this increase is needed to fund ongoing support of state of good repair projects. These items are described in more detail in the staff summaries contained in your committee books, and I submit them for your consideration and vote.
Any questions or comments before we take a vote? I just want to come back to the first one and reemphasize the point. We're giving Siemens a contract for extra services on a feature of that's related to CBTC, the ATS system, right?
The ATS system.
And we struggled with our modern signaling to make sure that we had competition. This is a sole source contract giving Siemens more work because, in effect, they got the first contract. right?
That's
So what we're trying to do is make sure we don't have a lot more contracts like this, right?
And this contract will support that in the future. It makes it more accessible for others to come in and program off of the system going forward, so we'll have.
We're putting ourselves in a pretzel to have competition in CBTC, so we can't have too many more contracts like this, right?
Understand, yes.
Okay, just laying down a marker.
Absolutely.
All right, anybody else? All right, with that, I'll take a motion on all of this. Mr. Jones, thank you. Second, Ms. Mahaltzis. All in favor of the procurements? Any opposition or abstention? The procurements carry.
And then I have one more.
One more.
Chair,
Okay,
yeah. The
go
last
ahead.
item that I'm presenting is an action item. It's a request to approve 2 amendments to an agreement with J.P. Morgan Chase entered into in 2019. Under that agreement, Chase undertook to repair a portion of the Grand Central train shed surrounding its New World headquarters at 270 Park Avenue. JPMC agreed to manage the rehabilitation of the train shed work and contribute $25 million towards that work. And then following the opening of their headquarters, JPMC elected to rehabilitate its adjacent property at 383 Madison Avenue and has also acquired 250 Park Avenue and is interested in getting the train shed work in these areas complete as quickly as possible, which is also in MTA's interest. And so now we're seeking approval to enter into 2 amendments to that 2019 agreement. First, an early work agreement pursuant to which JPMC will manage the rehabilitation of the train shed work south of 48th Street, and then a Sector 2 agreement under which JPMC will manage rehabilitation of the train shed work between 48th and 50th Street. And under these agreements, JPMC is going to contribute $50 million towards the cost of the train shed work. And I submit that one for your consideration and vote.
Okay, so any comments or questions? Melvin Miller.
So the total MTA cost for both those agreements would be as much as about $900 million.
All right, but but we're not, in fairness, there was a photo, another one of those Jano open mouth photos, where we were announcing this deal with JPMC. There's a guy in the background from Metro North who, when I got here, said this is going to take us 8 capital programs. He's a very capable engineer because we're not getting the money, because we are teaming up again and again with some of the local the real estate owners who are physically dependent on the train shed, as well as wanting workers to get there fast. We've been able to accelerate that dramatically. So we're going to have half of the train shed done by the end of this next capital program, plus or minus, right? That's the benefit of what's going on here. Okay, but more. Any questions or comments? Motion, Mr. Zuckerman, I saw you raise your hand. Second, Mr. Chu, all in favor? Any opposition or abstention? Okay, the train shed agreements are approved. And with that, can I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Mr. Garodnik. Second, Mr. Chu, we're in adjournment. Thanks.